Good evening, everybody. Buenas noches a todos. We're so glad that you are here. What do you want me to do, Mike? Can you hear me okay? Okay. Thank y'all so much for being here this evening. We are very humbled that you took the time to come and learn about everything that's happening in our city, especially right now with the transition that we're about to make. I believe that the best informed people are also going to be the best prepared. So, gracias a todos por preparando. And I want to let you know, my name is Christy Martinez Garcia. I'm your councilwoman for District 1. So thank y'all for being here. And I do want to acknowledge a couple of folks, if you don't mind, real quick. Of course, we have the first councilwoman for District 1, Maggie Trejo. This building is named after her. And he snuck in, but I see him back there. Mayor Trey Payne. Can you hear me okay? Mayor, wave so they can see you. And then we have our city manager, Jarrett Atkinson. Jarrett. Our new city secretary, Courtney Paz. Y si habla español también. El alcalde también habla en español. Our mayor also speaks Spanish, just in case you didn't know that. I taught him everything he knows. So it's a little bit, no, he knows it. And we have Bill Howerton, our assistant city manager. We have our chief of staff, Angelica Martinez, right? Gonzalez, Martinez is the best last name. But I want to let you know that we're going to do this in English, but if you need it in Spanish, we have a few translators, and they'll be interjecting, or they can come to you. We have the materials available in English and Spanish so that you can have it and look it over, but we're going to give you as much information as we possibly can. And then I also want to acknowledge Gwen Stafford, the Gwen Stafford back there. She's the president, the CEO of LPNL, the chairwoman of LPNL Board of Directors. Raise your hand. And then one of my appointments from District 1, Dr. Gonzalo Ramirez. Dr. Ramirez. Before I hand this off to Matt Rose, I want to let you know a few things because this is very, very important. We have a lot of things happening in District 1. And whether you live in this district or you just live in the city of Lubbock, thank you for being here. Again, our city is growing, and we have to utilize and select every single tool that we can so that as it grows, we're ready. We're ready for that growth. One of the tools that I want to give you tonight, everybody pull out your phones, put it on silent. But the next important thing is I need you to go to your apps, and I need you to download this particular app. It's My LBK. So simple. My LBK. And why I tell you to use it, if you see a loose dog, you can take a picture of that dog, you can upload it. You see somebody parked on top of the yard, take a picture, then you just upload it, put their address in there, and it's so easy. No matter what the problem is, there's quite a few things. My LBK. Capital L, capital B, capital K. Such a very significant tool. And you will get immediate response. The other thing that I want to tell you, if you're not involved in our neighborhood association, we have several. But one of them is the North Lubbock Neighborhood Association. And we have Alice Lozada here, the president. Alice, we'll do a quick wave. And she has information in case you want to join us at the next meeting, which I believe is the 22nd, right? And it will be here at Maggie Trejo Super Center, right here. So please join us. It's very well attended, so informative. We always have great information. And I think you will really, really enjoy being a part of that. The other thing is that I have a Facebook page for Christy Martinez, District 1. I try to provide as much information as I can, whether you're on Facebook or not, but it is a great tool also, and we constantly share information, really good updates. I share whatever's happening in the city as well as citywide. So please download that as well, and it's Christy Martinez, District 1. I also want to acknowledge all of the city staff. If you'll raise your hand, city staff. There they are, sorry. We're on a time limit, and they let me know, don't introduce everybody, just kind of do a quick wave. So thank you guys for being here. And then I believe that besides Maggie Trejo, we have our Constable Marina Garcia, who lives in District 1. Marina, thank you for being here, Marina. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Matt. And if you have any questions or if you'd like to talk to me, we also have some of my business cards. Please feel free. We can schedule an appointment, and you can email me. You can call us. We're here to serve you. This is not Christy's district. This is District 1. We are one. So just a quick reminder about that, because the other important thing that I really feel that I need to let you know is that we have boards and commissions, okay? So boards and commissions is where you as citizens can offer your input. You can offer your perspective. But if we don't sign people up, and let me tell you, we have a big deficiency of District 1 residents serving our board on our boards and commissions. So I really need you, if you will do me the favor of also going online and applying to serve on those boards and commissions. Sometimes it seems a little complicated, things that we ask. Jimmy and Courtney, will you raise your hand? They are here to help you with that, and you can ask them, I'd like to serve on a board, and they'll give you their phone number, and we need to get you guys placed. And let me tell you why. Because whenever decisions are being made for the entire city, and we don't have a District 1 representative, it impacts us. It impacts us in a negative way. And I need representation because, again, we need to work as one, District 1. So thank you again so much for your time. And with that, because we want to keep you on time, we're going to go ahead and get started. And I don't see our LPNL director. Is he here? Joel? Okay. But I do see Harvey. That's our CFO. So wave, Harvey. And he's so smart, it's not even funny. But even smarter is Matt Rose. And you know what I love about Matt also is we can see eye to eye on things. But seriously, Matt has been doing this, trying to build awareness about things happening in our community. Do not be afraid to ask questions. And like I said, si necesitas la información en español, también le podemos dar en español. Okay? Tenemos gente para ayudarlos. So I've got, let's see. Will you raise your hand if you're one of our, there's one of them right there. And Angelica, raise your hand also. We're ready to help. We want to make sure that you are prepared. And I do want to remind you one more thing. There's a lot of scams happening, and I think you're going to touch on that as well, right? Okay. With that, let's get started. Thank you again. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction, and right on cue, it breaks. Let's see if I can fix this here. Password incorrect. Okay, all right. Now we're going to start. So as the council member just pointed out, this is the first of these types of meetings that we've had in District 1, but it's certainly not the first of these types of meetings that we've had in this area and throughout the entire city. And until we have gotten well beyond go live of this project, myself or a representative from Lubbock Power and Light will be out equally across our community talking about this important project that is coming up in the foreseeable future. Right up front, the council member touched on the fact that already, unfortunately, we are seeing scams out there related to this project. And so one of the things that we're going to walk through today is the timeline for making this decision and what it's going to be in terms of you, the customer, what's going to be expected in the process that you're going to go through. But just know that right now, here and now, if somebody comes to your house and knocks on your door, or somebody calls you on the phone and tries to get you to sign up with them as an electric provider, just know that that process has not begun yet. And if you look at the packets that you have in front of you, or if you go on our website, you will see that as of right now, we don't have the electric providers that are going to operate in this market listed, because they're not through testing with us and they're not through the registration process. We expect that to wrap up really by the end of May, and once we get those names, we'll put them up on the website, we'll put them in these packets, we'll be sharing them with everybody. We'll put up the name of the entity, the best direct contact phone number for them, and also the website that you can go to find out more information. Up front, we expect that our market here in Lubbock, when we open up, is going to be very similar to the markets in, Big Spring, Midland, Odessa, San Angelo, Wichita Falls, Abilene, where they have had this version of electric competition for over 20 years. We are the first city-owned utility to voluntarily go through this process. But folks in Lubbock had a version of competition for a long time. And as we made our move to ERCOT, one of the things that we were very open and honest with the public about was that we now had the opportunity to engage in this, to bring other providers in, allow our customers to make a choice. And so I know up front it seems daunting, and it's something perhaps that for you as an electric customer you've not had to do before if you've only lived in Lubbock, or you've lived in one of the 72 cities like Austin and San Antonio that own their own utility. But once we walk through this, I think you'll see that there is a pretty straightforward process to it, and I'll share lots of resources that can help you as we go through and we get closer. Before I dive into this, let me just say in terms of time frame, we have one final federal approval that we need to get before we can officially migrate the remaining 30% of our customers over to the Texas State Grid, or ERCOT. So if you'll remember, in Memorial Day of 2021, we migrated 70% of our system, so 70% of our customers, from the Southwest Power Pool, that is a multi-state power grid that runs basically from Lubbock all the way to Canada, to ERCOT, which is the state-owned and run electrical grid. Right up front, I will tell you, ERCOT is not a power provider. You're not going to sign up for service with them. And one question I get a lot, we were not sold to ERCOT. We are just hooking onto the state grid. ERCOT basically is the air traffic controller for the state grid. They're the ones that decide how much power needs to be on the grid. They're the ones that coordinate with the power plants and the power providers to make sure that power is on the grid. And they manage all the rules and regulations that go along with that. They're managed by or regulated by the Texas Public Utility Commission and by the legislature of Texas. So once we get that final federal approval, which we anticipated that we were going to get last week, but we didn't. Instead, they said we want to take a moment and a pause and we want to look at this before approving it. Once they approve that, which we believe is going to be in the immediate future, I'll be out in front of everybody saying this is when we're going to migrate the rest of the 30% of customers to ERCOT. And therefore, that officially starts this countdown to competition. And I'll be able to go out there and tell you this is exactly when you can shop. And then this is exactly when we'll migrate customers to their new providers. We can't start this process until 100% of our customers are hooked onto the ERCOT grid, because there are two electrical systems, two sets of wires in Lubbock, and it would not be fair to go door by door and say, you have competition, but you don't, but you do, but you don't, and on down the line. It would be mass chaos, and it would not be fair. So we've said we'll start this when 100% are eligible for it, and so we should be able to make that announcement very soon. So starting at the beginning, what is retail competition? So retail electric competition is basically like shopping for a cell phone plan or an internet plan where customers can go out and they can look at the offerings of many different electric providers and decide which one that they want to sign a contract with. We'll talk about the details in a second, but you get to decide how long that contract length is. You get to decide what price that you're signing up for, and you get to decide basically what the resources are that make up the electricity that's coming to your home. So, when we make this transition, and all of our customers choose a new provider, and you're all migrated to your new provider, Lubbock Power and Light is not going to go away. Today, we own, operate, maintain, invest in the electrical grid around Lubbock. We will still continue to do that. We will still be the ones that make the investments in our local grid. Our linemen will still be the ones that go out during the storms and get the power turned back on when there's been damage to our wires or substations. So we'll be on call during outages. And we will be in charge of, when you sign up with your new rep, we'll be the ones that make sure that that goes through and that we're the ones that turn that power on. That is an important role to play, and that's how this operates in the rest of the state that has competition. If you're in Dallas or Houston or those cities around us like Midland and San Angelo, Wichita Falls, if you're in any of those cities for the last 20 years, you've gotten to go out and decide if you want company A, B, or C. But there's still been one entity that has been responsible for those wires. And their cost for maintaining those wires is included on the rep's bill that you choose. So let me just stop there and say, also what we will not do is Lubbock Power and Light will not be an option for you to choose. We are strictly going to be the ones that maintain the infrastructure. So we will not have an offering in the retail market. We won't send bills directly to customers. Your bill will come from the rep that you choose with our wires charges included on it. And City of Lubbock Utilities, which is the customer service and billing agent for right now 5 of your city-owned electric utilities, LP&L, water, wastewater, stormwater, solid waste. LP&L will drop off of that bill, but you will still receive your bill from City of Lubbock Utilities for your city water, wastewater, stormwater, and solid waste. So none of that will change. You will still get that bill that will have your now 4 different city-owned utilities. LP&L will just not be on that bill, will be under new provider's bill. So when you look at this pie chart here, this is a representation of what our business model is, but it's also a representation of basically where your costs come from today. So if you're looking at this pie chart, I'm sorry? That's what I'm doing. That's what I'll get to. I promise. Okay, let me walk through this presentation and explain that, and I will be here to answer any and all questions, both from the mic, but also until everybody leaves tonight. So if you have questions, I'll be able to answer all of them. But let me walk through this presentation so that I can tell you how we got to today. So if you look at this representation, this is what we currently do today. The light blue right there is what's on your bill right now, and it's listed as the energy charge. It's basically our base rate. It covers every single thing that we do in our business, including servicing any and all of our long-term debt. That is all contained within that light blue, and it makes up about 30% of your total rate. The dark blue is what it costs us to buy power for you. So right now, we go out and we buy power for all of our customers. And we take that power and that cost of buying that power, and we spread it evenly across all of our rate classes in order to make sure that we are making our money back for what it costs us to make power. It's a direct pass-through to our customers. When we go to competition, you'll see that orange section there where it breaks off. That's what you're shopping for. Instead of Lubbock Power and Light going out and purchasing power for you, and then telling you what that cost is for that power, right? That's what you're going to go shop for, and you're going to decide which of these different companies that you want to go with. And that power that you buy from them, right, it's going to flow through our wires to your home. And so when I talk about our cost being on your new provider's bill, when you get your new provider's bill, there will be a line item on there that will say, basically your wires charge, transmission, distribution, utility, and that's how we will recoup our funds for what it costs us to maintain the grid. The advantage of keeping it this way is that our sole responsibility now will be maintaining the electrical grid and making investments in that, and not making sure not only does it not deteriorate, but as Lubbock grows, we continue to grow out that grid so that we have ample power for new business and residences coming in. So I'll stop right here because we're about to get into the details of how this works, but I'll go back and I'll kind of address this history. So in 2015, we went in front of the city of Lubbock and we said we have two options in terms of where we go for the future of power for the city of Lubbock. At that point, we had existed in the Southwest Power Pool, that multi-state power grid that runs from Lubbock all the way up through Canada. We had existed in that power pool for a number of decades. But starting in 2019, basically the one entity that we could buy power from, Xcel Energy, that we would provide to our customers, we could no longer buy power as we were before. So the only option that we had if we were going to stay in the Southwest Power Pool was to build a very large power plant, natural gas power plant. It would have cost about $750 million. And that debt that we incurred from that power plant would be paid off by our ratepayers alone. And that would be the one source of power generation that we would have for our citizens for the next at least 30 years, if not more. So if natural gas goes from being $3 as it is today to being $13, natural gas drives the cost of electricity, then that's going to be the cost to our customers, and there's no way that we could hedge or take insurance against that. Your cost would just go up because that power cost goes up. If, God forbid, a tornado or something went through that plant and damaged it or destroyed it, we would be in a bad way until we could months and months and months later get that power plant back online. We have some power plants here in Lubbock that we operate, but the resources from those are dwindling, and every single time one of those power plants has some sort of a hiccup or a break, it costs us millions of dollars to repair it, and our customers pay that back. So at that point, we went out to the citizens and we said, look, we're not going to go the Southwest Power Pool route and invest our customers' money in a large power plant. We're going to go to ERCOT, because by going to ERCOT, it means that we will build transmission lines, large electrical lines, to hook up to the ERCOT grid. But the cost of those transmission lines is subsidized by all the ratepayers in the state of Texas. So by leaving the Southwest Power Pool, not only do we rack up a bunch of debt that our folks have to pay back, but we now have transmission lines in service that have hooked us up to ERCOT that are paid for and give us a rate of return on top of that that we can use to cash fund infrastructure projects going forward. Now, as we walked through this, we said if Lubbock is ever going to have another option as a power provider other than Lubbock Power and Light, now is the time that it's going to happen. Because you see already we just had that one contract that we had to get rid of so that we could make this move, and that's what's being held up at the federal level right now. Imagine you are in Austin or San Antonio and you have all sorts of contractual agreements and you have all sorts of ties. There's no way that a city of Austin could stand up and just go to competition today. So if Lubbock was ever going to do it, this is the time that we were going to do it. So we spent about 2 years having public debates at the city council and the EUB level about this decision before in February 2022, it was voted on to move forward with competition once we get all of our folks into ERCOT. So that's how we got to today. It was really a two-step process of saying, number one, we know that ERCOT is where we need to be because it gives us the most resources for our customers. But then as we go through this process, that second step of if we're going to let our customers choose, now is the time to do it. Because every month or year that we were in ERCOT that we had not made this move, we would have just re-incurred all of those business ties that make it nearly impossible to unwind and make a big move like this. And Lubbock customers had a choice in providers up until 2010. It was a choice between two providers. It's the reason why you have two sets of wires running down your alley today. But you did have a choice. This is a larger selection pool that you will go through, but it is the version of choice that is available if we were ever going to have it. So I'll say up front, our website is going to be the best place to go for information. Everything I talk about here tonight, including the slide deck that you see, is on our website, downloadable in English and Spanish. So if you hear something tonight and you say, I want to go back and see, you can download this stuff on our website, and I encourage you to do so. Really quickly, you'll see this kind of snake-shaped map here that is kind of where we started and where we are today. Once we get the dates for when you can go out and shop for a new provider and the important dates of when we migrate you, we will put it up on that sheet. We have created short animated videos that we send out through social media but that live on our website that are good little short explainers of this project. We have another one that we're about to publish and a couple of more basically in production. All of these are going to break down not just what this project is, but how you go through the shopping processes, important things that you want and need to know, including key dates and various things that have changed or will change as we go through this process. The frequently asked questions, that's a good place to go to and a good resource. I will tell you that nearly every single question that is answered in this section has come from some public event such as tonight. And I'm sure after we leave here tonight, there will be 2 or 3 more that will add to it, because every group that we speak in front of has some new take or question that we haven't fully, not that we haven't fully thought through, but we haven't sat down and written out an answer specifically for that question. So that's why I say, when we get to the Q&A section, please, any questions, specific or broad, please throw them out there because it helps populate that. Right. So, yes. So that goes back to a second ago where I was saying, we could have stayed in the Southwest Power Pool and we would have had to build that power plant. That was our only option in terms of how to provide power to our customers versus going to ERCOT where, we had the option of competition, but there's also any number of power plants throughout the state of Texas that can actually produce power that comes to Lubbock. The Southwest Power Pool has all sorts of rules that restrict geographically where you can get your power from. And because Lubbock exists at the very southern portion of that, it really actually kind of landlocks us from resources in the Southwest Power Pool. One of the things that we were having to do every year in the Southwest Power Pool is pay what they call a capacity charge, which is basically a subsidy payment that goes to power plants. The idea being, if you give them that extra assurance, they will build those power plants and they will exist. The problem is all those power plants exist in Kansas and Nebraska and places where we can't access that power, where in ERCOT, the 600 power plants that exist, any provider can buy from any of those power plants. It's what they call an energy-only market. And so in the last week, you've heard a lot about, ERCOT and their summer assessment. And the fact that in that summer assessment, they have an extreme scenario where it says that if any number of these factors hit, we could be at a point where they might have to do a conservation call this summer. But I will tell you, the Southwest Power Pool is sending us those exact same alerts, and we will have those same alerts from them because really when you look at the grids across the United States, we have a federal issue when it comes to our lack of grid stability and grid resilience. And so ERCOT and the state of Texas, and they actually have a bill in the legislature right now to encourage this, they need to continue building out the ERCOT grid in terms of bringing new power plants on. But really across the United States, we need to be doing that because we're seeing it all over the place. Last summer, the grid that services the middle part of the country that's based out of Indiana, they had a call out to basically say, we're going to run out of power at the end of this summer unless certain events happen. So it is a concern across the board, and I'm not dismissing the ERCOT because it's a good question. ERCOT is contained solely within Texas, and it's funny because we looked at it as a good thing that in order to get things changed in ERCOT, we just have to go to Austin and to the PUC to get it done. I've talked to different groups that say they like the federal regulations over it. We kind of like it to just be state regulations because those federal regulations a lot of times can get spiderwebbed and have a lot of different interests involved in it versus just kind of Lubbock and Texas. But it's a question that I continue to get, so thank you for asking it because it's a good one. So when you're talking about delivery fees, that's that 30% I talked about here. Your delivery fee will be what you pay us to maintain the grid. And those rates that Harvey is working on will be locked in by the next few months and by the time we make this transition. So you'll know what your delivery charge is from us. The only variable aspect of that will be what the cost of power is from your provider. And that you can lock in, and we'll show that here in just a second. But your delivery fees won't go up in the summer or seasonally with us. They're going to be locked in. A lot of folks, after Winter Storm Uri, had a lot of providers added like a storm recovery charge. We didn't have to do that in Lubbock here because we actually got through that storm fairly well. So we were unique in that. So to transition real quick, and again, we'll get to questions here, and I'll answer any and all questions that you have about this and any aspect of what we're doing out there. The main tool when it comes to this process of picking a new provider is the powertochoose.org website. It is the state-sanctioned website that is managed by the Public Utility Commission, and we encourage folks to go ahead and go out and start looking at this site now, even though your providers that will be here are not currently logged in there because they're not through with the registration process. But you can go to any of those cities around us that have choice and type in their zip code, and it will show you what the offerings are. And our expectation is that those offerings, say in Midland, will be very similar to what we're going to see here. Typically, it's going to be about 30 different companies offering anywhere from about 120 to 150 different plans. Every time I say that, I hear members of the audience, groan a little bit, and I get it. But I'm going to show you here in a second that this can be as simple or as complex as you want to make it when you walk through this process. So when you get to their website, you're going to type in your zip code, and you're going to click View Results or narrow your search. If you want to narrow your search, you can throw in a couple of more, answers to these questions here, and it will preemptively narrow down your choices. How much do you typically use on a monthly basis? How long would you like your contract to be? These types of things. But if you don't do that and you just click through, type in the zip code and you click through, this is Midland's zip code, then right there you can see all of the plans that are populated here. Now, you'll see on the left-hand side of the screen, there are filters, and I'm going to show you what happens in a second when you walk through those filters. But without clicking any of those filters, you can see right here, LP&L's rate to buy your power for you and deliver it to your home, our all-in rate is 13.5 cents right now. Natural gas has been low the last 6 months. But what you can see is that right here in Midland, the first one that you get, and these plans are going to populate from the cheapest to the most expensive. They're going to kind of be pre-ordered so that you're going to see the best cost offering first. If that's all you care about, I just want the lowest cost I can possibly get. You can see right there that there's a 7.7 cent per kilowatt hour rate versus our 13.5 cents. So right there, you're doing better. Now, one thing I'll throw out here, when we get to the time when our customers go out and choose, I will take our all-in rate and I will put that on our website and I will advertise that heavily because that's going to be your price to beat. So 13.5 cents now is where we are versus 7.7. Now, there's any number of things that you can click here to basically go through and refine those results. So let's say that I go through and I say, I only want a fixed rate plan. And then let's say I want to show all the plans. Go through here. Now, let's say that I am someone who has never contacted City of Lubbock Utilities about my LP&L electric bill. I'm somebody that generally does not utilize customer service. I'm pretty easy. I just want a rate. I want to sign up. I want the lowest rate possible. You can just go ahead and pick whichever company you want. But let's say that is a premium to you, and you say, I only want 4- and 5-star rated companies based off of PUC reviews. You can do that. And you can, and I use this as an example. I'm not saying that some or all in here will be interested in this, but if you're somebody that says, for example, I want 100% green power, it's important to me, you can click that and say, I want 100% green power, right? When you do that, what's going to happen is that these plans up here, you're going to see that 7.7 cent plan as your cost, as your cheapest cost plan, that cheapest plan is probably now going to cost you 11 or 12 cents because you've narrowed it down. You've gotten more specific. You're paying a premium in that you say, I only want a 5-star rated company and I only want renewable energy comprising the electricity that comes to my home. So you're going to pay a little bit more, but you may not care about that. And so if you don't, you can go through and just say, I want the lowest cost plan from the best customer service rating. And that number is probably going to be 9 cents. So it's going to be a little bit higher. But again, you're doing better than where you are currently today. And that's the idea here. You know, I say this all the time, that customers, they don't pay a rate, they pay a bill. When I talk to customers and I say, how much do you pay for electricity? 99 times out of 100, that customer is going to give me a dollar amount. They're going to say, I typically pay 150, 200, 250, 300, something like that. They're not going to specifically say, well, I pay 13.65 cents per kilowatt hour. Most folks don't even know what kilowatt hour necessarily means as it relates to the cost that is incurred to them. So that's why it's important that I put that number out there so everybody knows that as a rate, as a volumetric rate, you know that that's the best price to beat. Now, once you've made your decision, and once you've said, you know what, I like this populated Frontier Utilities. I like Frontier Utilities. It's a fixed rate. It's 7.7 cents per kilowatt hour. And I'm not entirely sure. This is my first time choosing, so I don't want to lock much in. So their plan is for 3 months. So I can lock in a 3-month plan for that price, which is a good price, and test them out. And if I like them, I can re-sign and go on or not. Or you may be somebody that says, you know what, this is a company I've heard of. I like this company. They've got decent reviews, and I like this cost. I'm going to lock this in for 24 months or 36 months. It's up to you to decide how long you want to sign that contract and lock it in. But before you do anything, every single one of these providers, by state law, every single one of them has to provide you a fact sheet. It's called an electricity facts label, but it's listed there just as a fact sheet. And this is going to tell you what every single one of their costs and fees are. And they all have to list the same ones out there so that consumers can relatively shop and compare. So, why is that important? Well, that 7.7 cent rate, you may go to this fact label and it may tell you that every time you call them, you have to pay $50. Right? It's probably why they have a 1 or 2-star review. But then maybe you see a 4 or 5-star rated company, you go through there and they don't have those types of restrictions. And they have all sorts of different types of plans that can help you. One of the plans that our customers used quite a bit, and we've had to roll it off this year, and I know that a lot of folks used it because I've heard a lot from folks about us ending budget billing. We had to roll that off so we could true up all the accounts to make this migration over. If you're somebody that uses budget bill, and you like that process, you're going to want to make sure that your provider has a budget bill program that you can sign up for. It's also going to list things like, if I'm disconnected for non-pay, what is the payment to cut me back on? And importantly, and I'm going to say this, and I know I'll still get questions because I do with every single group, how much is my deposit going to be? When you choose your new provider, there's going to be a deposit that's required. You have to imagine it's like you're moving to another city and you're signing up an electric provider for the first time. They're going to require a deposit. Now, LP&L is required to offer everybody or give everybody a letter of credit so that if you're a good pay customer, that you can get the benefit of that. You can get credit for that. But everybody will have to pay a deposit. So one of the things that you're going to want to maybe take a look at is, how much is that deposit and what is the deposit policy in terms of getting that deposit back? With Lubbock Power and Light, our deposit is refunded automatically after 12 months of good pay. Commercial customers is 24 months. So you're going to want to make sure not only what am I paying in terms of deposit, but how easy is it to get that back? Again, that's going to be contained in this fax label section. A lot of what's in this shopping guide that I've handed out today, and you'll notice that I put a Public Utility Commission logo on it because a lot of that information is coming directly from the Public Utility Commission. And so on their website, they've got a user's guide that you can walk through, kind of an interactive step-through guide. But I'll tell you, a lot of that information you've got in hand today, but it's an area that you may want to check out. So again, user's guide. I've kind of skipped around a lot. So I'll end with this here, that obviously we put out a lot of information through social media. And I encourage everybody that can and would like to follow us on social media so you can get updates on this project. But if nothing else, you can always go to our website and get all of the information in bulk at any point in time. Now, as we transition to the next section of us talking here, I want to start it by saying this. I know that there are folks in this community that do not have a computer at their home, do not have internet access at their home. One thing that we want to try to utilize is a lot of our community spaces here in Lubbock as much as we possibly can. And so I'm going to work with the libraries, I'm going to work with the community centers, so that when it comes time to do this, folks that don't have access to these resources at home have a place that they can go to walk through and sign up for a new provider or get information. I'm going to try to pass out and have all this information available in handout form at all of these libraries and community centers. You can always stop by City of Lubbock Utilities downtown across from City Hall and pick up one of these packets. Since I've started doing these district meetings, I've had a lot of folks that have just come directly to our office in Citizens Tower, and I've printed them off and handed them out as they've gone out to hand them out to churches and various different social groups that they're members of. So that's going to be an important process here, is making sure that everybody knows that there are places that you can go to look through, to make these decisions. When we get to the shopping window. So, once we migrate the remaining 30% of customers over to the ERCOT market, and I go out to the community and I say, okay, the shopping window starts on this date, and that shopping window is going to run 4 to 6 weeks, right? Every single weekend, at least, during that shopping window, it is our intention to have every single one of these providers come participate in community events, likely at the Civic Center, so that people can come out and meet these folks, ask them questions in person, and if they want to sign up with them, they can do it right then and there, or if they want to take the information home and do it later on, they can. You don't have to go through the website. I'll list all of their, the powertochoose.org website. I'll list all of their contact numbers on our website, and you can always just call them directly and have them quote you a rate. Every single one of these providers is going to have everybody, because it's the way that it works, they're going to have access to everybody's information so that when you call them and sign up with them, they can do it right. They can quote you, and they can do it right then and there over the phone, or when you press that button on the website, that contract is signed and you're with them, and it's a seamless process. But I know no matter how many different groups that we get out in front of, and how many times I go on the news or go on radio or put this information out through social, that there are going to be folks when that shopping window comes that don't make a choice in their new provider, either because they didn't know what to do, or they just didn't do it, or they weren't even aware that it was going on. I found that it doesn't matter how much you promote these things, there's always going to be folks that don't know this is going on. So one of the most important decisions that the City Council and the EUB have made to date on this project is that they went through a request for proposal process. They solicited bids from power providers, and then there was a special commission that they impaneled to review those, and they've chosen 3 default providers. Those default providers are Reliant Energy, TXU Energy, and Octopus Energy. And when we come to that point in time where the shopping window ends, we will take a few weeks and we will make sure everybody's connected where they need to be connected with their new provider. But any customer that hasn't chosen will be randomly assigned to one of these 3 companies. And those companies, by engaging in this, are required to offer them a rate that is right there in the middle of the market. So that even if you don't choose, you're going to land with a reputable provider that's going to give you a cost that is very similar to folks that have chosen. And they'll keep you on there for up to 90 days, but at any point in time, you can turn around and go pick somebody else, right? Or if you just want to stay put, then you can go beyond those 90 days, lock in a contract, and go forward. But it's just to ensure that folks don't fall through the cracks as we make this move for any number of reasons. So it's an important part of the process. And, you know, you've seen some of these entities that are selected as default providers. You've already seen them in the community. One of the things that we did when we solicited those bids was we not only asked, do you have the capability to take on 10, 15,000 new customers without it, you know, jeopardizing basically your power portfolio? So they had to prove that they were large enough and that they had the wherewithal to take on these customers and do what they promised. But also importantly, we asked them and we graded them on this. We said, what can you demonstrate to us? How have you been in terms of being citizens in the communities that you're operating in today? What is your record of giving back to that community? What is your record of being there on the ground and involved in that community? And also, show us how you have been able to work with low-income customers so that you make sure that folks that, you know, need assistance can get assistance. And we've already held one open house with all of the local assistance agencies here in town and any and all of these reps that are going to be operating in this market. So it wasn't just those 3 that were selected. We sent out to all these different reps, and we said, and we had a good group come in. And we said, come meet all the energy assistance folks and go ahead and start working with them so that when we make this transition, Neighborhood House and these entities, the Salvation Army, Catholic Charities, all of these ones that currently help folks here in Lubbock, that they're signed up and they're ready and they know where to go if locally there's assistance that needs to be given. But as we show in this packet, there are also statewide funds that are available in the competitive market to help low-income customers as well. So I'll stop there, and at this point I'll move to questions. And so I know you've had your hand up here. So Matt's going to come with the microphone here. Y'all hang with me as we go through. I'll try to call on folks, but let's try to make sure that we get microphones. So yes.
When do we actually go to the new provider?
Okay, it's a great question. When do we actually go to the new providers? So, when we announce the shopping window, and that shopping window will likely be a few months after we migrate those 30% of customers over to ERCOT. Let me do it this way. I've been out in front of the community saying what our tentative dates are, and those have obviously been pushed back by a few months. So, if you go back 2 weeks ago, I was standing in front of a group like this saying, right now, our tentative date for you to go pick your provider will be August 2nd. And we'll run it through the month of August. And then come September, we will shut it down so that we can have time to make sure everybody's where they need to be and we can assign to the default providers. And then starting in October, when you naturally get your City of Lubbock utilities bill with your LP&L bill on it, you will get your finalized bill from us, and then you will get your bill from your new provider in November. You can shout it out. I'll say it.
So when we choose our provider in August, are y'all notified who we chose?
Yes. Yes. So the question was, in this hypothetical now of August being the shopping window, when you choose your provider, yes, we are notified of that. Because again, remember, our job is that we are maintaining from the meter all the way through to our transmission lines and vice versa, right? And so when you sign up with a new provider, the meter that's on the back of your house, it has a unique number to it. It's our job to make sure that your meter is reading and that your new provider is getting that read. And so, yes, we will know where everybody is connected to, because that'll be part of that process to make sure everybody's settled where they need to settle. But again, I'll just stress, when we did not get the federal approval last week, that's why we've come out and said this project is going on still. We're working at still the same pace that we were, and just as soon as we get word that we've gotten that final approval, I'll be out in front of you saying these are the new dates, and it's likely obviously going to shift by a few months, but we're still talking about doing this process in the next 6 months, not the next 2 years. I mean, we're still talking about a short time period. Next.
Who's going to be over what is going to happen to the ones of us that have solar?
Great question. Great question.
Solar panels and
Yes.
stuff. We want to know
Absolutely.
where is our money going to go, and what
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
going to be to y'all, or is it going to be to the new provider?
So right now we have, so the question was, what about customers that have solar panels? You know, how do they play in this process? So right now we have about 1,600 customers that have solar panels on their homes. And that number has been rising steadily over the last 2 years. LP&L, since 2015, has had a net metering program where every single kilowatt that your solar panel produces, you get a dollar for dollar credit or match on your bill. And therefore, at the end of the month, if you've used 1,000 kilowatt hours and your panel has produced 500 kilowatt hours, your bill is 500 kilowatt hours, right? It just nets it out. We have not had a buyback program. But when we go to the competitive market, there are companies that you can engage with that have buyback programs for solar. And so if you're somebody that has a solar panel on your home, right up front, that's an important thing that you're going to want to tell this new provider. I have a solar panel. So therefore, I need to get the rate that you offer that benefits folks with solar. You know, right now, Lubbock Power and Light, we do the net metering, but your base rate is a third of what the average residential customer's base rate is. So we give you a credit on the base rate, right? But these providers, you might get a better base rate and negotiate with them and say, what are you going to buy if I produce more power in a given month that I consume, so I have an excess, what is your buyback program for that excess power? And so there will be a benefit to solar customers, but I will say this overall, and please don't take this as me knocking solar, but I've spent a lot of time dealing with good and bad solar entities here in Lubbock. So what I would tell you is this: if you're going to put solar panels on your home, you really need to think of that as a substantial investment in your home, like putting a new roof on your home, re-insulating, right, doing these types of things. Because no matter what a solar installer is going to tell you, it is not free. It's going to be financed. They're going to say, it's free, you don't pay $1 today. And then you get your bill and realize, well, you know, I've knocked off about 30% of my energy usage, but I'm now paying $175 for a month for a finance fee. So just always make sure you know what you're getting into. And this is coming from somebody who manages the grid. And when people put solar on their homes, it's less that comes off of the grid. So it is a benefit overall. But for customer protections, always, always, always make sure. It is amazing to me the number of folks that an installer will show up at their home and they will just sign off right then and there for $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 worth of solar panels. And there's nothing else in this world where somebody shows up at your house and says, would you like to finance this car? And you're like, sure, right? There's always a process to it. So just always make sure that you ask those questions. But thank you for asking that question, because it's an important aspect of this. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure I understand this. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but if we're paying 13.5 cents to LP&L now, and that includes delivery, then can I expect my delivery charge to go up? Because if I choose one of these entities who's going to charge me 8 cents, that's not true, because I'm going to have to pay delivery on top of that.
Every single one of those rates is an all-in rate that includes the delivery charge. And so if you're looking at, okay, there we go. So that 7.7 cents, that includes the energy charge in it.
The charge that LP&L is going to add on to it.
Yeah, right. So right there, that's Midland, right? So in Midland, I think it's Encore that is the delivery system in Midland. If it's not, it's AEP. But I think, let's see. Sometimes it's listed on the fact sheet, but either way, let's say Encore, right? They're the delivery system. They charge 4 cents per kilowatt hour.
On top of that,
No, it's included in that. It's included in that. So when you populate these plans, it's going to say 7.7 cents. Our wires charge is included in that. And I'll speak for a minute more about this, because I think it's important, because I read this a lot in comments on news stories and on social media, where people will say, we're just going to be paying twice now. We're going to be paying our new provider, and we have to pay LP&L on top of that. The whole point of showing the chart here, where I went, and I know that the media folks hate me right now for going back through all these, but that's why I show you this right here. No matter where you are, you have to have that blue bubble, because that's how the power gets to your home. And so whether you pay Lubbock Power and Light to deliver that power as we do today, or you pay Encore in Midland, or AEP in Wichita Falls, or CenterPoint in Houston, it's always going to look like that. There's always going to be one entity. Because if you imagine, there are these 100 or so companies or plans that you're choosing from. When you click through and you sign that contract with that company then is not going to say, okay, we're going to now build a line to your house, right? It can't work that way. If for no other reason, then all this town would be is just a spider web of electrical lines. We had 2 providers running lines to your home for a number of years, and you already see how much excess there is in terms of power poles out there on both sides of the alley. So that's why one entity always owns and maintains the wires and the infrastructure, and competition comes from who you want to buy your power from, and then it just runs over those lines. So when we first go into the market, our cost to deliver our power for the first 2 years is going to be slightly higher than Encore's. Our cost of business is the same, but because we are ending our business, we're rolling off every single thing that we're doing right now. It makes costs a little higher. When all of these, so as just a little bit of history, the competitive market came in Texas in 1999. The legislature decided we want competition in ERCOT, a full competitive market. So they went out to all of the areas of the state that were served by investor-owned private utilities, and they said, y'all have to deregulate so that customers can have choice. But they went to all of the municipally owned utilities, of which there are 72, and they went to all the electric cooperatives, of which there are 75, SPEC being one of them. And they said, we're not going to force you to go into competition. We'll just let you do it at a point when it makes sense to you. And that's why you've got competition in Dallas and Houston and those cities around us, because they were previously served by private entities. But when they all went into the market, they had to not only roll off all the debt that they had on the books for their current business model, but they also had to implement technology. We're having to implement all of these computer systems to make this work too. So that's why the first 2 years in this market, we're going to be slightly higher. But then once we get beyond those 2 years, our cost is going to be exactly the same as these other, really 3 delivery systems across the state. Okay. Addison, I'll let you choose. Yes. So the 3 default providers that were chosen are Reliant Energy, TXU Energy, and Octopus Energy. And we actually do have one representative from Reliant in the back of the room there, Anna. She and I have actually done numerous different kind of speaking engagements like this because I've said all along, our role is going to be to provide as much information and resource as possible, but she's also out there introducing herself and their company to the community. So I've told every single one of these new providers, if anybody wants me to come to an event with them and stand shoulder to shoulder and explain what we're doing, I'm happy to do so. And so I've done several with Reliant, done one with TXU. So I plan to do more.
Is it me? So I guess it gets confusing for people. Like, say you have no electricity charge. Say you leave the country or something, and you're no kilowatt hours produced. So what's the wires charge? Would the wires charged from LP&L, would the providers have to pass that through exactly as what you charge them?
It's part of your total rate. So if you do not consume any electricity, then you don't pay anything.
They can't charge. They don't separate out your base charge.
No, you will have, as you do today, you will have our meter fee, which is a set $8.07 per month.
About.
You will get charged that every single month, as you do today.
They have to pass that through exactly as.
Yes, and that's the cost to maintain our meter adjacent wires.
Are you changing that?
No, it's $8.07. And so just as you do today, that's how it'll be, after we make this move. But if you do not consume any electricity, you won't be charged anything beyond that because that's a rate based off of your
Can the
usage.
providers charge their own sort of?
Nope. Well, look, that's why you want to read that fax label. But no, they're not allowed to stick just random sorts of fees, Now, you do want to make sure that you read through just to make sure. But one thing about that fax label that I talk about is that the state set it up so that they can't deceive you through that fax label. It's not like signing terms and conditions when you download a new product from, say, I don't know, Apple or something like that, right? Where they give you 320 pages of small print and you got to find it. They all have to look the same. They're all one-pagers, and they list out all their fee structure there. So that's where I say there may be some smaller entities that charge you if you call them for customer service. That's what you want to make sure that you avoid. But all in all, they can't overcharge on our behalf or their behalf or anybody else's. It's based off of your usage. And I'll just say this too, that right now, LP&L, we pay a franchise fee to have our equipment out there. That's still something that we will charge, just like we charge sales tax on the bill. Your reps don't get to keep any of that. That all gets remitted back to us, and we remit that back to the city. And that's where the council member, when they go through their budget process, you'll see those things today that get passed through from LP&L. Those things have to continue. The reps only get to keep what that electricity cost charge is, that orange bucket.
So you're not like the $8 or like the $30 for solar customers isn't changing.
No, that will stay exactly the same. So that's what we're getting approved right now, and Harvey helped me out here, but we're about a cent more than Encore, but that falls off after 2 years. Yeah. So the question was about the delivery charge that we've been talking about, and she was saying that she read somewhere that was going to be $64. So what the media did was, when we gave a presentation to the board and council on this, we went ahead and said our average customer, meaning our average customer uses, 1,000 kilowatt hours type of a deal, then that would equal $64. But it's not a set $64. So it gets kind of confusing because the media reported as if going forward you're going to pay Lubbock Power and Light $64 a month. Right. It's no. It's based off of your usage, and it's that blue box right there, a part of the pie chart. What they were saying is your average customer using the average amount of electricity. And again, that's very close to what it is today, because today that blue box is our base charge. The orange box is our power pass-through. And that blue box for us has been locked since 2017 in terms of a rate. The orange one changes every 6 months because that's based off the cost of natural gas. So, but no, it'll be based on your own usage. There's no, other than your meter fee of $8.07, there's no other set cost that'll be on top of what you use. Yeah. Sure.
Okay, I really have several questions. Number one is, I want to make sure you're saying that all the zip codes will be able to choose one of those three.
Well, all of you will have many more to choose from than just those three.
But I mean Reliant and the other two you just mentioned.
Right.
that
So
were
Reliant, TXU, and Octopus.
all zip codes.
Yes. So a good question. There is no difference by zip code when we go through this process. So no matter where you live in the city of Lubbock, you type in your zip code, anybody in our service territory, you're going to get these offerings. It's not based off of location. And those three are the ones that will catch folks that don't choose and pick them up. But if you go type in your zip code, you'll get to choose from all of the different plans, not just those three and those three providers.
And the next question is, right now, and being on LPNL, there's a difference depending on the zip code as to what you pay.
No, ma'am.
Meaning, if your house is small and you have friends that live in other areas and their houses are 2 times your size, with LPNL, they have been a lot less.
That's not your rate. That's usage. The rate is the same for every customer. The only difference is if you heat with natural gas, then you are a rate 1 customer. If you heat with electricity, you're a rate 3 customer. And those base rates are slightly different. And that is because if you're heating with electricity and cooling with electricity, your base rate is a little bit lower because you're using more electricity. It's 2.9 cents per kilowatt hour. And if you're a standard rate 1 customer who uses natural gas, so you only really have your summertime peak, you're 3.381 cents per kilowatt hour. And any one of our customers pays the exact same. And what we charge for the pass-through of our power is exactly the same. I understand anecdotally when folks say, I have a house that is this size, and I know of somebody who has a house that's this size, and somehow this person pays less than I do. How efficient your home is drives how much your cost is. It really does. And the fact of the matter is, if you have a new home that has double pane windows and insulation in the attic, and the doors are all sealed up, that house is going to be very efficient, and that AC unit does not have to do very much for you to keep that house cool. But if you don't have good insulation, if you don't have trees kind of blocking so that hot sun's hitting your house all day, your meter's going nonstop because your AC unit's going nonstop. And so you got to look at your consumption, but the rate is the same. And I promise you it is throughout the entire city. If it wasn't, we would get sued because that's called discriminatory rates. And any utility that's tried that has been taken to court and they've lost. By law, you have to offer all of your customers the same.
Okay, and the last question is, are you all going to upgrade for some of us, our lines are almost touching the grass. Are y'all going to do any upgrades with any of that?
None of our electrical lines are hanging on the ground.
No, they're very low. They're not on the ground, but they're.
But what I'm saying is the lines that are on the lower part of the pole, those are your communications lines. It's not the lines on the very top are the electrical lines. If any, I will say this, and I'll use this opportunity. If anybody sees that top line on the pole laying towards the ground, please let us know. Not that a communications wire is safe, but if our electricity line's hanging that low, then we need to go string that back up. But to your greater question, yes, part of what this allows us to do is really make our sole business our electrical grid here in Lubbock.
Okay.
And so where we have, as a whole, we've spent about $500 million over the past 5 years. We put in 3 new substations, upgraded a bunch of substations across the city, and upgraded a bunch of our lines. We took all of our 69,000 volt lines and upgraded them to 115,000 volts throughout the city. You know, not everybody liked it, and I get it because it's not always aesthetically pleasing, but those big lines that are running on the South Loop and coming back to the east side of town, those are some of our new 115,000 volt lines. And that's to make sure that we've got high voltage lines equally across the city. So if, for example, one thing that happens when we have an outage, the line breaks, and how electricity works is when you have a break in that line, then basically everybody that's serviced goes down until you can connect it back up. So one thing we've been able to do is when we've had bad weather come through, now that our system has been expanded, we are actually able to take customers and shift them circuit by circuit while we fix that line and then bring that line back into service. So we've got to continue doing that. And one of the projects that we're going to do is go alley by alley when we get done with this and remove the lower voltage line and upgrade the one line so you've got one unified set of poles in your alley that it's a higher voltage. So it's a problem. Trust me.
Matt, I think what she was actually asking was in the portions of town where you still have overhead lines going from the alley to your house.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of the instances where the lines have not been changed, the drop line, in many years, they've sagged down.
Yes.
She was
Okay.
asking, are you going to actually update those?
Yeah, and if there's a line, so the point of ownership is the meter and the meter base. And so if you have a meter on the back of your home, like the meter is actually affixed to the back of your home, the meter begins our system, right? The meter and the line that runs out, that is the point that we own. And then your meter box and the electrical equipment inside your house, that's on you. That's why if you have an electrical problem inside of your house, you call an electrician, you don't call us. But for some folks, their meter is in the alley. So if the meter's on the back of your home and you've got one of those lines that's hanging real low, call in and let us know about that because we'll come out because we can work on that line. But if your meter's in the alley, that's where legally our work stops. And if that line hanging down low, you'll have to call an electrician. I promise I didn't make the rules, but that's where it kind of stops. But anybody that has a meter in the back of their home, low-hanging wire, let us know. We'll come out and work it.
Okay, question. Say I decide on a contract on a company, and I want to put it there for 12 months. What if I decide at 6 months, nope, this is not working for me, I want to change it? Is there a penalty for changing it, for breaking the contract?
Likely yes, and that's where that fact sheet comes in because they have to list what your contract termination fee is. And I use this because I think it's a true example, but it's also, I try not to make it seem like I'm always pushing people to the larger providers. But a lot of times the larger providers, you'll see that fees for like contract termination are not as high as smaller providers. And it's just a risk calculation on their part. But you're going to want to look at that because there may be some companies that say, you know, you break this contract, it's going to cost you $50. There may be some companies that say it costs you $500, and you want to know that going into it. But if you still sign up and you didn't know that, that's where you make that calculation of, do I stick this out for the extra 2 months of my contract, or do I break it? But it's very much in that, you know, we sit up front, it's kind of like a cell phone plan or these, very much the same as that. If you break, there's typically a contract, you know, breakage fee.
Question. Will you have throughout the city some people help the senior citizens, or will you send out flyers with step-by-steps to guide them through it?
Yeah, so we can't, if you call into City of Lubbock Utilities, if you call 775-2509 today, our folks are going to, the call center folks with City of Lubbock Utilities are going to be able to point you to the information, to upcoming events, but they can't walk you through and help you decide. They're not allowed to do that. So one of the things we've tried to do, like I say, is we're going to try to get out to as many libraries, community centers, and have this information so that it gives them a step-by-step. I also have a shorter version of this that's just on our website that's just a one-page deal that's just steps 1 through 10 and then has the questions that you need to ask if you want to ask questions. And so and that's why also I want to really heavily promote these shopping fairs when we get to the shopping window when the reps are in town so folks can go meet these providers as well. We do. They're available in Spanish. Made sure of that. And any of the resource material that we're going to be putting out, including those animated videos, they're also in Spanish. But no, just trying to get as much resources out there as we possibly can. You know, when it comes to residential customers, I'm like many others. You're always going to worry about senior citizens making that choice, 100%. But I tell you overall, the areas that always concern me are, small businesses. I'm not worried about our biggest users. They're large institutions, and they have the ability to hire a broker, do whatever they want to do. It's the smaller businesses I worry about, and I worry about, small to medium-sized churches. And that's why, like tomorrow night, I'm speaking to a group of pastors that, for example, with these churches, I've tried to get with as many as I can to say, like in terms of churches, y'all band together. Y'all band together, and it gives you a little bit better negotiating power. And I'll talk to them about that tomorrow night. There's things like that you can utilize that I think that it's going to be important in this process. Nope.
Why do we have to have contracts?
Again, it's the same sort of deal. You have to sign up with the company, and so that you've got to sign up for their terms and conditions. Right now, you don't sign a contract because you don't have a choice, right? But your contract with us is what's called our tariff, which is our schedule of rates and fees. When you sign that contract with these companies, that's going to be tantamount to our tariff, right? That's going to say, I agree to pay this rate per kilowatt hour for 3, 6, 12 months. And I agree that as I do business with this electric provider, these are the fees that I might naturally incur for different products or things like that. So that's why you have to sign the contract. You don't have to, again, today. Right. One more thing I just want to throw out about deposits. I mentioned earlier that LPNL returns deposits automatically after 12 months for good pay. But we still have a lot of customers that have a deposit on file. All of those deposits must be returned to our customers on that final bill. So you will get any deposit money that you have on file in that final bill, unless you walk your final bill, and that's why you have a deposit, so that the rest of the group here does not have to pay for somebody walking that bill. But after you final that service and pay your final bill, any amount of deposit will get returned back to you.
Couple things. One, you said right now no one can go door to door or call you up and sign you up.
But they are.
When the window opens, will they be able to do that?
If they have a peddler's permit. And that's one thing that I'm already out there right now as I get reports of folks going door to door that I don't know have the official paperwork with the city. We're turning that over. I encourage anybody that has somebody knock on their door to let us know. But I've told everybody, you can't sign up with anybody right now. And we're getting reports of people coming up to people's doors, and they're giving them their electric bill and personal information. So please don't do that. If somebody shows up, you can tell them, you're not authorized to sell me anything yet. But part of listing all those names on our website is public safety. When we get to that shopping window, I want to be able to say to folks, if somebody knocks on your door, quick check our website and see if they're actually a verified registered provider in Lubbock. And you'll be able to know that from our website.
And then, if you move, is that considering breaking your contract, or does it
No.
carry over with you?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. If you move, if you've got a contract with with a company A, B, or C, and you move, your contract will follow with you, unless you move to a territory that is served by by SPEC, because nothing of this project is going to change how SPEC does business or how XL does business. They're still a monopoly for those that they provide to, and none of that's going to change. Nor can you choose SPEC or XL when we make this move. They're a rural electric cooperative owned by their members, and so their business model remains the same. You know what? I'm just gonna call them out, because I've had a lot of complaints. Maximum Power is one that is going businesses and door to door, and they're passing out information, but they're engaging. So I have no problem. These are already ones that we're having issues with, so I have no problem pointing that out. Thank you.
And he also told these folks that he would make you a good deal. I mean, that right there should let you know that you cannot negotiate stuff like that. You already saw the information, so be careful of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is the territory that LPNL currently serves and the territory that SPEC currently serves set in stone forever?
Yes.
And never grow any more area?
One of the hardest things to do is move your service boundaries. It's incredibly hard to do. And part of that reason is that within your service territory, you have invested in your grid and you've built up your grid, and you've typically financed that over 30 years, over a long period of time. And so there are instances where you can go to the Public Utility Commission and an LPN on the spec can say, we've jointly agreed that we want to take these facilities here, but they don't look very kindly on it, and it's a hard process. That is why, as the city grows to the southwest, it will continue to grow and become more dense in spec territory as opposed to Lubbock Power and Light. They're on both, actually, but the area here around Lubbock is on the southwest power pool. But spec's territory, as it kind of goes down and comes back over to the east, they actually have some of their service territory in ERCOT. XL Energy, they're solely in the southwest power pool. Very, very, very small part in the northern part of the city. Yeah.
Can I just ask my last one?
Sure.
I promise.
Sure.
I noticed 3 different rates on there: a 500 kilowatt hour, a 1,000 kilowatt hour, and a 2,000 kilowatt hour.
Yeah, so that's good. A lot of these companies, and it's something you can take a look at, a lot of these companies will do that, where they'll say, for your first 1,000 kilowatt hours of usage, your rate is 8.1 cents. From 1,000 to 2,000 kilowatt hours, they charge 7.9 cents. Anything above 2,000 kilowatt hours, it's 8.1 cents. That's still fixed. That's still locked in. It just means on any given month, you're charged for. So if you're somebody that does not use very much electricity month to month, if you typically, our average customer uses about 750 kilowatt hours in the winter months if they don't heat with electricity. And then they use about double that in the summertime. They use about 1,400 kilowatt hours. And so if you're somebody that even in the summer months, you still use under 1,000 kilowatt hours, then you can kind of front load it and find a company that offers you a pretty low rate for your first 1,000 kilowatt hours. Especially if you're somebody in a house that you're like, I've never used over 2,000 kilowatt hours. But I think we've got some stuff, but that's a good example of I need to write a kind of a fuller answer and put more of that in this packet, because that doesn't mean that it's a variable rate that they can change on you. It just means that it's kind of a tiered rate based off of usage. And I don't know if this is an apt comparison, but here in the city, we do a little bit of something like that for water in terms of water rates and those block rates. So.
Thank you. I live in an apartment.
Mhm.
One of my concerns has been that the people who manage the apartment complex would do the choosing, and I wouldn't have any input into it.
Yep.
I called LPNL a few days ago and confirmed that I have a smart meter,
Mhm.
and the lady told me I would get to choose.
Yeah,
Does
so
that
do
sound
you,
right to you?
so the question being, if you live in an apartment complex, do you get to decide? And the answer in short is, if you currently today, you receive a bill from City of Lubbock Utilities, if you receive an LP&L bill and you pay your electricity by yourself, then you will get to choose your provider. If you're somebody that lives in an apartment complex that is all bills paid, where you pay your electricity through your lease, then your apartment complex will be the ones that do that. Some apartment complexes, and thankfully this is kind of dwindling, but some apartment complexes, they just have one master meter that they then subdivide amongst all their customers, and then you pay that part of your lease. Others have the individual units metered, but you still sign a contract where you pay them. So it's whoever you pay today. The mall is a good example of that in terms of their tenants. The mall will likely choose, but it'll be up to them which one. Yes, ma'am, back here. Retirement home, same sort of a deal. If you live in a retirement home where your electricity is paid through that lease or your payment to them, they will be the ones that decide. If you pay it individually, you will.
So then what you're saying is that your rent or the contract with the retirement home could either go up or down depending on what they choose as the retirement home or the company that runs the home. Is that right?
I'd say yes, that is correct. But much like today, when we have to adjust our power cost every 6 months, if we've got to adjust that up, those retirement communities or those retirement homes will likely increase whatever it is their tenants pay for power, because it's going to be based off of that. I'd say it's very similar to this. Your new cost is going to be based off of what they negotiate. A lot of these apartment complexes that are not just solely located here have buildings and apartment complexes in areas where there is competition. And so a lot of times what they'll do is their parent company will actually be the ones that go and decide, and a lot of times it'll be based off of who the provider is in these other cities. And so it really depends on how that's structured, but yeah, primarily it would be based off their cost. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I wanted to know if the maintenance on the LP&L lines, are they going to go up, or are they going to stay the same, or what?
They'll stay the same once we lock in that delivery rate, because the maintenance just like the investment is going to be based off of our current cost. And so we're finalizing that, but when I talk about us locking that rate in, and that'll be your delivery rate, that'll include the maintenance cost in that as well. And so that shouldn't change.
So those rates or those resources are coming from all of the citizens, correct?
Yes,
okay.
They are. Now, the nice thing that we've got today is that we've got a rate of return for all of these new transmission lines that we built over the last 2 years. And so we've got about $45 million coming in the door today that we did not have before we built these transmission lines. And that $45 million, it pays for our cost of paying the debt on those lines, but then it also gives us additional revenue that we can use, again, to cash fund the maintenance projects, by a better percentage than we did previously in terms of the cash versus debt funding aspect of it.
What are your thoughts on the comments that ERCOT said about a brownout or something later this summer or something? Yeah, so
that was their seasonal resource assessment that came out with last week, and I will say this. Really, since about 2016 or 17, every year that they've come out with that, they've said two things. They've said, one, Texas is growing, and so we're going to have a record electricity demand this summer. And number two, in our extreme hypothetical scenario, there could be problems. But if you follow that extreme hypothetical scenario, it is an extreme hypothetical scenario. I envision, though, because they've said that they're going to do this, I envision that as we get into the heat of summer, you're probably going to see ERCOT proactively on days where we know we're going to have high demand, call out for voluntary conservation. Well, and here's the thing. They've not had an issue with the grid since Winter Storm Uri. There have been localized outages. Austin, a couple of weeks ago, had an outage that lasted a week. That wasn't ERCOT. That's the fact that the folks in Austin stopped trimming trees around electrical lines. And that's, a lot of y'all in this room scream and yell at me when I come out and they cut your trees back. But just look at Austin a couple of weeks ago. That's why we do that. And I get it here in Lubbock, trees come at a premium. I get it, but that's why we do that. But no, what I tell you about ERCOT is that there's going to be points in time this summer that I'm going to be out there saying ERCOT has asked for voluntary conservation. Doesn't mean that you have to do a thing. They don't have control of your thermostat. They're not going to throttle you down. But it's an important tool that they said they're going to use more, because if folks are at work and they can adjust their thermostat and ease the grid a little bit, it's a lot less expensive than other measures taken if it stays 105 degrees over a long period of time and stresses the grid. But it doesn't mean that you have to do a thing. But we're gonna play along and do it too, because it helps. You're also going to see me out there from the Southwest Power Pool side, because we've still got 30% of customers hooked on. Same sort of deal. They'll send out those same things. Hey, real quick, and I just promised, because somebody gave me this, and it's a good question, just are there any basically plans, networks, or things where citizens can file complaints? When we make this transition, the Public Utility Commission of Texas is where you will submit complaints about your providers, and they have enforcement action. So when you go through those customer ratings, that's based off of their record of customer complaints coming from their folks. There's also a state agency called the Office of Public Utility Counsel, whose sole job it is to protect ratepayers in the competitive market. So you can still talk to your council members, but what you're going to hear them increasingly say, and the city staff, is send your complaint to the Public Utility Commission of Texas, and they're the ones that go through and ding these companies, find them if they're doing something incorrectly, ultimately put them out of business if they're not operating as they should.
Go. I wanted to emphasize also that every household should have an emergency preparedness plan also. Whether it's weather related, we saw what happened with COVID, we saw what happened with the 1970 tornado. The Y2K, you should always have an emergency plan. This is something to me that is very vital, and it's very simple. And if you want information, we can share that with you as well, but please be prepared for anything, anytime, any day. I wanted to just mention that. And I think we have one last question, just because it's already almost 7:15.
Well, I just needed to know what happens once we choose the company we want. Is it automatically switching over? Do we have to call somebody, say we don't?
Nope.
It's just.
It will. So when I talk about that timeline and I say, so you'll choose your providers, and then we'll kind of shut down the process for a few weeks to make sure everybody's where they need to be. You will then get your final bill from LP&L, and you'll get the next month, you'll get your bill from your new provider, because, right, you're not going to get your bill in the same month that we finally you out, because that would be double billing, because what you used will be cost twice. So you'll receive it the next month. But that's where I say, if you go to powertochoose.org and you click and you say sign up, and you sign up, it's immediate, and you're now with that new provider for as long as you would like to be.
I want to thank everybody. We're going to try to do another one of these meetings, but just be looking out for the information. We're sharing it with a wide range of media. It's on social media. If you have questions, do not hesitate to call LP&L. You can also call City Hall. Thank you all so much for attending tonight. Please be safe. Gracias por su tiempo. We thank you for your time. God bless. Thank you. Have a good night.